Hello everyone, welcome to the third Swift tutorial. In this tutorial we will talk about one of the important pillars of Swift programming, and it's nothing but enums. First we will introduce one of the cool features in Swift, which is playground, and it's basically for playing with the language and getting the quick feedback response. And then we will switch to introducing enums, and most importantly I want to introduce the concept of optional. And what is optional, how to wrap it, and how we bind it. So let's move on. First thing first, let's talk about the playground. If you open the Xcode, and you'll see the first option, get started with a playground. So let's click on it and open a new one. And it will ask for a name, so we'll give it some random name. Just my playground is fine. The second option is a drop down, so it asks if you're developing for iOS, OS X, which is for Mac only, or it's TV OS, it's a new one. So for this tutorial we just need iOS, so I just leave it as is, and boom, it created for us. Actually we have to give it a path, so whatever directory you want to save, it will add it here. If you look at it, let me just make it full screen. If you look at here, this is just a comment, and it imports the UI kit, so you'll access to some of the basic foundation Swift classes, and also it has some sample code here, like a string that you can see is just a simple var and equal to hello, and also you can see the result of this var here at the right side of the screen. So if from the previous tutorial, Hello World app, if I just copy paste the code that we wrote here, it will simply give you the result. If you notice, it will running it here. As soon as I copy pasted, it started running, and it will show me all of the result on the right side of the screen. I should mention that it's more than just a console. Believe it or not, it will just draw a line, it will show the data in the graph, and it's very cool and easy to use. So whenever we want to learn something, we can just come here and test it here and then run it in an actual project. So as you can see, the result is ready. For example, for the first line, we define the first variable language name, and then we change it here in the second line, so it will show all of the result. If you notice here, you can see the print, and for the result, it would show objc, which was here, and then it says \n. It means that it goes to the next line. Then same as the other values that we already talked about it, but let's just create some graph. Very easy. If you have developed in different languages, you should be familiar with while loop. So I would just use a while loop and say I'm just a random number. Let's define this number above. I would say var number equal 0, and then here while number is less than 20, do number plus plus. So it just adds adds 1 to number each time it goes to the loop. So let's give it some time for running, and you will see how the result will look like. Okay, the result is here. As you can see, it says that it goes 20 times. If you've noticed here, you'll see an I here. If I zoom in, and also a plus sign. If I click on a plus sign, it will show the results underneath my code. So let's just take a look. As soon as I clicked on it, you will see it shows a graph that it starts from 0 and ends at 20. So I can go through the data and click on each dot, and it will show me through the increments what is the data look like. So it's a very simple data and very simple code, as you can see, but it's very useful for complicated code, and you can just get the result right away. If you don't want to show the result in line, you can just click on this and dismiss it, and click here and show the result in a popover. So that's the very simple stuff that you can do with Playground, but as I said, it's a very useful tool, and you can do complicated stuff and complicated calculation. Even you can draw a rectangle here, add a picture, and everything else. In Swift, there are 3 categories that we can write our code, and each category has its own characteristics. So based on our need, we pick one and we write the code. So for here, we have class, and you may already see in our first tutorial, which was hello world, and see this class name, and the way of declaration is very simple. You just write the class name and yeah, the class syntax, and then the class name, whatever you want to name it, and if inherit from something, you just write the inherit from that class column and that class, and you just open and close curly braces, and then write inside of it. So this is how we declare the class. Same exact thing for struct and enum. So you just put struct and the struct name and the open and close curly brace. During the course, you will get more familiar with class, so we will talk a lot about the class and how we use the functions. And today we'll talk about enums briefly, and I will dedicate one session for struct in the future if it's needed, because we usually use classes and enum and rarely struct. Struct is more like type like int, double, float, and these are structs. So let's talk about enums. Okay, let's clear an enum here. It's very easy, as I said. We just have to say enum, and then the enum name, I would call it gender. And it, of course, has 2 types. It's either male or female. So you would just say case and your case name. So female. And that's all. That's all I have to do for creating an enum. And now how can I use it? I can just say var and oxtag and its type gender, of course. Then I would say huckstack equals gender dot male. So that's how we specify huckstack. We can just have it all of them in one line and say, okay, so and like this, or you can do something much cool like this. You can just don't write this and it's a dot male. If you've already defined the type, you would just say dot male. We can have a switch for it. You can say switch huckstack, and okay, so now we have to specify our cases. And we can say if it's dot male, do what? Just print that it's a man. Now the other case would be dot female. Oh, not male. Female and column print a woman. Okay, now I can just see as soon as we write the cases, it print out it's a man because it knows from here that huckstack is a male. So this is a very simple use of enums. It just types, you specify the cases, and then you can easily use it. It's much more powerful than the other languages because it's just not only you can specify the types, you can just give it some functions here, and you can add functions inside of your enum, but we don't go over too much detail for enum. For us, for now, it's enough. Okay, now let's talk about an optional. Optional is nothing but an enum with two cases. The first case is nothing or nil, and the second case is something. And this something could be any type, array, string, whatever type we have. So if I just want to write it down and to give you some more visual, I would say optional. And inside of here we have, I put T, and it's kind of like type. I can just delete it and say array. And this array has two cases, and the first case is none, and the second case is sum. And this sum gets a type that we pass the top. So for Swift, when you want to specify optional, we will, instead of showing the whole word, we will show a question mark. That means optional. So let's see how do we have it. I will just make an example. I'll just delete this and have a real example. Let's look at this. I say do we have a dictionary here? And the way that we specify it in the first session is the key is type of string, and the value is also in a string. So now we initialize our dictionary. Now let's put some value inside of it, and I would say okay, the first key value, I say key1 and val1, and I copy paste this 3 times to have 3 key value. Of course, we have to change the keys, otherwise the compiler gives error. And now I want to print the value for key 1. So let's see what would we get. First, we have to specify the dictionary, and then inside the bracket we have to pass the key. So you should return the value. But look what it returns. It says optional and the val1. What the heck is this optional? Why we get this optional? And it's because when we get the value out of a key, this key could exist, could not. That's why it's optional. It could go something or nothing. That's why it returns an optional. So in order to get the actual value but not optional, and then inside of parentheses we get the value, we can just simply we can just simply unwrap it with exclamation mark. So I said we can make it optional by question mark, and then we can unwrap it with exclamation mark. So if I put exclamation mark here, it will give me the actual value. See, there's no optional. But it could crash my program if there is no key here. So we should make sure that we have the key and then we pass it. So if I put key 4, look at this. It's an error. It's basically runtime error. So this is how we unwrap the optional. Okay, now you may ask, sometimes we don't know if we have the key or not. So how we should handle this situation? This is the time that we use if let. So we say if let and name some variable that we want. For now I just name it key1 value. It's just the name that I just picked. And then I said if let key1 value equals my dict key1. I just passed this here without exclamation mark. And then I would say open curly brace, close curly brace. So it will go inside of my bracket or curly brace if this value is not nil. So whatever I put inside, I would just say print key1 value, the same thing, and it will go inside of it. See, it print out the value. But if I pass the key that we don't have, it will just not go through it. This is for this line. I just remove this line. But as soon as I pass some key that we have here, for example, key 2, it will print out the value. This is how we handle the situations that we don't know if the object is nil or not. Okay, now imagine that we have a dictionary like this. It's a string, the key is a string, and the value is any object. I haven't talked about any object because it was very easy. Any object means it could be any type, string, int, anything that you can think. If you are familiar with Objective-C, it's basically the same as ID type, so any object. And for this case, we have key as a string for sure, so it is these are our keys, and the values is any object. Why did I use any object? Because for these two options we have strings, but for this one we have another dictionary. So I can't just say use string because we have another type which is dictionary. So I want to get some value, the value of sub key 1 from this dictionary. So let's see how we can do it. I can just say var sub 1 key 1 val, and then say my dict, of course, and pass the first key here. So until now, if I unbind it, unwrap it, I would have this value, the whole dictionary assigned to this. So if I look at it, in order to see the type that you already assigned, you have to just hold down the Option key or Alt, and you will see a question mark on it. So if I click on it, it will show me that the type is any object, but the actual type is a dictionary. So I should convert it to a dictionary, otherwise it won't conform to the functions that I want to use. For example, if the dictionary has a method called insert object or add object or anything, we don't have the add object for the dictionary, but I'm just saying if that function needs to be called, we can't call it from the any object. So first we have to convert this any object into actual object, actual type, then we can use it. So what is the actual type? It's a new dictionary. With what? With string key and string value. So how can I assign it? It's by casting. So I can just easily say and remove this one and say as. This is how we cast, as and exclamation mark, and we just specify the type, string as a key and string as a value. So now if I hold down Option key and click on it, it will show me the actual type. So this is right now, and I can just easily say, okay, print out sub value, sub 1 key 1 value for what? For sub key 1, because I want this value, so I have to pass this key this time. So it should return this one, and see, it's still optional, so I have to unbind it, unwrap it, sorry. I keep saying unbind, but it's unwrap it. Unwrap it with exclamation mark. You again may ask, what if the type that we are casting is not the right type? Of course it crashed the application. So how we can safely do it? So we have to just use an is function. So how we use it is if, and we say my dict key 1, and we say is and we pass string as a key and string as a value, then go inside of the curly brace. So this is how we check. If this is string as a key value, then we can just assign our variable here and just print it out as string. So that's how we do the safe casting. One more thing that I want to talk about optional is how to make a variable optional. We learned how to unwrap an optional into an actual type, but we need to know the reverse, how to make a variable into optional. So I would just say var my string, and I can just say it's the type of string. So if I go over it, option key and then click, you can see the type is string. Now, how can I make it optional? I can just put a question mark at the end and I easily made it optional. So if I click on it, it should show me that it's string and question mark. So what does this mean? It means that it's optional that could be string. So it's not string. Don't think that it's string and you can add the method that is relative to string. It's optional that could be string. In order to use it, you have to unwrap it. How to unwrap it? You just have to use exclamation part. So this is a very important concept that you should know. That's all for this tutorial. I should mention that optional binding, optional unwrapping, all depends on the experience, and the more you work, the more you feel comfortable using them. And throughout the course, we will talk a lot about it and we will use them a lot. So stay tuned for the future tutorial.